Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ahmad Afiq bin Muhammad Nil, and now you are watching IIC TV live from Petaling Jaya. So today we want to discuss about one hot topics nowadays, which is the impact of COVID-19 pandemic to transportation segments of Malaysia's travel and tourism industry. So before we go straight to our main topic today, I want to explain to all of you about COVID-19 or coronavirus disease 2019 and how they spread. Coronavirus disease COVID-19 is an infectious disease caused by a newly discovered coronavirus. Most people who fall sick with COVID-19 will experience mild to moderate symptoms and recover without special treatment. How it spreads. The virus that causes COVID-19 is mainly transmitted through droplets generated when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or exhales. These droplets are too heavy to hang in the air and quickly fall on floors or surfaces. You can be infected by breathing in the virus if you are within close proximity of someone who has COVID-19 or by touching a contaminated surface and then your eyes, nose, or mouth. So now, let's go straight to our main topic today about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on transportation segments of Malaysia's travel and tourism industry. So, we start with a short film that made by Mr. Haider about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic that affected travel and tourism industry in Malaysia. So, what are we waiting for? Take 1, take 2, and roll it.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Haider bin Shazali, and today I'm going to talk about the effects of COVID-19 in social life. The COVID-19 outbreak affects all segments of the population and is particularly detrimental to members of those social groups in the most vulnerable situations. This virus continues to affect populations including people living in poverty situations, older people, people with disabilities, and youth. For example, homeless people get affected because they may be unable to safely find a shelter and are highly exposed to the danger of the virus. People without access to running water, refugees, migrants, or displaced persons also stand to suffer disproportionately both from the pandemic and its aftermath, whether due to limited movement, fewer employment opportunities, and increased xenophobia, and more. In terms of employment, youth people are disproportionately unemployed, and those who are employed often work in the informal economy or gig economy on precarious contracts or in the service sectors of the economy that are likely to be severely affected by COVID-19. More than 1 billion youth are now no longer physically in school after the closure of schools and universities across many jurisdictions. The disruption in education and learning could have medium and long-term consequences on the quality of education, though the efforts made by teachers, school administrations, local and national governments to cope with the unprecedented circumstances to the best of their ability should be recognized. Many vulnerable youth, such as migrants or homeless youth, are in precarious situations. They are the ones who can easily be overlooked if governments do not pay specific attention, as they tend to be already in a situation without even their minimum requirements being met on health, education, employment, and well-being. Although young, healthy individuals typically have a more robust immune system than the elderly, the WHO encourages everyone, including youth, to take extra precautions to avoid infection and transmission, such as by washing hands regularly, keeping a social distance from others, and staying home when sick. Social distancing is vital not only to decrease spread but also to limit a surge in cases whereby hospitals exceed their capacity to treat those gravely ill. That's why many governments have called on youth to embrace the effort to protect themselves and the overall population. Youth are also in a position to help those who are most vulnerable and to aid in increasing public health social awareness campaigns among their communities. Thus, youth are critical and part of the active plan to limit the virus's spread and its impact on public health, society, and the economy at large.
thank you to Mr. Haider for the short film. So what we get from the short film is Mr. Haider want to tell us about one of the impact of COVID-19 pandemic to our social. I really agree about what Mr. Haider tell us in the short film. COVID-19 pandemic really give a big impact to us in social. Okay, actually one of our reporters today has volunteered to help the people who has problem due to this COVID-19 pandemic at Arada Mansara. So we have Miss Fatiha here. Miss Fatiha, do you hear me? Okay, I will loudspeaker. Okay, so Miss Fatiha, today our discussion is about what is the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on transportation segment of of Malaysia's travel and tourism industry. Okay, what is your opinion or what is the impact that you see that COVID-19 give to our travel and tourism industry?
Revenue of bus terminal decreased due to MCO. 63% of flights were cancelled. All the employees working with the airlines lose their job due to no moving flight. The transportation sector limits passengers per trip. Tourists from within and outside the country also cannot go out to go on to holiday. In the first stage, the hotel received 193,000 room cancellation resulting RM 75 millions. COVID-19 case is reported in December 2019 in China before widespread spread around the world. The pandemic is highly impacting the tourism industry in Malaysia, particularly the airlines, hotel businesses and also the transportation industry.
Okay, thank you Miss Fatiha for your time. Okay, Miss Fatiha already told us that COVID-19 pandemic also affected our economic at Malaysia. So Mr. Haider already talked about COVID-19 really give a big impact to the social, and Miss Fatiha just now already thought that COVID-19 give a big impact to economic. So next, we continue to our next video that made by Miss Sophia Shazwina, that she also talked about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on transportation segments of travels and tourism in Malaysia.
Looking at the effects of the coronavirus pandemic COVID-19, it turned out that it is not limited to health and economics only, but also transcends international politics. The COVID-19 pandemic affected the political system of several countries, resulting in the postponement of legal activities, the exile, and the death of some politicians. In fact, some legal action has been suspended. Some national leaders and politicians have been quarantined for the positive COVID-19. In addition to doing natural selections, killing activity for fear of spreading the COVID-19 virus. As such, some countries enforce selective movement, restrictions on political parties, distributor assisting, political supporting, and marginalizing minorities as well as migrants. Thus, the people rose to express their anger because some were dissatisfied with the decision that took some leaders' COVID-19's control.
Okay, thank you Ms. Sofia Shazwina for the documentary video. Okay, Mr. Haider just now already talked about that COVID-19 pandemic really give a big impact in social, while Ms. Fatiha already talked about the COVID-19 really give a big impact in economic, and Ms. Sofia Shazwina talked about the COVID-19 pandemic really give a big impact in politics. So like usually, our last segment today, we want to call our supporters, our viewers, and our spectators for today to discuss about this topic. So now we already have one caller from our supporters. Okay, hello, who's there? Hello? Hello, Ahmad Afiq here from IIC TV. Who's there? Okay, it seems there's no answer. Okay, we go to the second caller. Hello, Assalamualaikum. Who's there? Hello. Hello, Ahmad Afi here from IICTV. Who's there? Okay, seems there's no answer. Let's proceed to our third caller. Hello, Assalamualaikum. Who's there?
Waalaikumsalam. My name is Damira Adana binti Muhammad Effendi and I am from Johor Bahru.
Okay, Miss Damira Adriana from Johor Bahru. Okay, Miss Damira, what is your opinion about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on transportation segments that affected Malaysia's travel and tourism industry?
This year, tourism was supposed to boom like never before. Worldwide, the advertising drive for the big campaign Visit Malaysia 2020 was set in motion. Our tourism campaign, Visit Malaysia 2020, was expected to attract around 30 million tourists with an expected revenue of a solid 100 billion. However, the COVID-19 pandemic has put a damper on all of this, affecting more than 3.5 million people working in the tourism industry. Aware of the unconscious, we are already heading towards the recovery phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. Since the implementation of the Movement Control Order (MCO), public transport services such as MRT, LRT and KTM commuter have had to reduce travel services. Meanwhile, the aviation sector, public bus facilities and ERL had to be suspended. As we think about the next phase, public transport goes through more daunting challenges, but if it adapts quickly, there is definitely an opportunity to change the public transport system forever. When we think about how to reopen economic activities safely, public transport fights with three main things: widespread mistrust, risk of financial collapse, and capacity problem during peak hours due to forced social distance. Demand will decline for a long time even if MCO has been relaxed. Most workers are encouraged to work from home, and most of them still feel nervous using public transport. Public transport is a low-margin business and is often dependent on subsidies. The decline in its long-standing demand result in many routes being unworkable, while the implementation of social distance also result in an increasingly uncomfortable environment. Even with declining demand, major roads still face capacity problems during peak hours. If social distance is done, its utilization capacity will decrease between 15 to 30% from pre-COVID levels. To make matters worse, there is a shift in the mode of public transport to private transport. In China alone, the use of private vehicles jumped to 66% from 34% during the pre-COVID which saw a similar decline in public transport usage. Increased use of private vehicles will affect traffic congestion, air quality, and carbon dioxide emissions. In addition, additional measures such as more frequent disinfection, protection employees with appropriate equipment, allowing passengers to sit in one place to maintain social distance, as well as changing the schedule of services affect the estimated cost to be borne. Careful planning has become a priority in the provision of public transport services. The fact is that public transport is one of the important elements in the economic development of a country. Sustainable public transport services can drive economic growth and ensure the well-being of the people. In general, public transport services can reduce traffic congestion, shorten travel time, save on daily expenses, reduce pollution and accidents. Although we are facing an unprecedented crisis, public transport still has the opportunity to go through more positive changes than ever before. The ability of public transport services to adapt to the current situation is able to restore public confidence in using it. Planned and organized preparedness is able to ensure new and safer new conditions. As public transport services has a direct relationship with consumer, the emphasis should be given by public transport services is to increase the effectiveness of communication with passengers. Effective communication mechanisms are important to raise awareness of the benefit of using public transport and a description of the measures that are being and have been taken in time of crisis. Consumers will be better understand and familiarize themselves with new situations. In fact, Research to understand consumer habits and travel patterns is also important to determine the right intervention to encourage such behavior change. This can deliver quality services to increase public transport productivity. The new norms require high discipline to provide safe and continuous public transport services to consumers. It requires the of all parties including consumers as well. Users must also adapt and follow all the changes that have been set so that the service can be continued even in time of crisis. At the same time, of the level of trust will increase again while still maintaining social distance and safe conditions. This new environment, if practiced, will definitely give a new impact to the culture of the community using public transport, which can eventually move economic activities as they are. I think that's all about my opinion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Miss Damia Adriana, for your long explanation about your opinion. Okay, we already have four impacts today that we get from this discussion. So, for the first is Mr. Haider say about the COVID-19 give a big impact to social, and next Miss Fatihah tell us that COVID-19 give a big impact at economic, while Miss Sofia Shazwina talk about the impact that we receive in politics. And just now, Ms. Damira Adriana already tell us about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on transportation segment of Malaysia's travel and tourism industry in travel and tourism industry. Okay, I think that's all for our discussion today. I'm Ahmad Afiq bin Muhammad Nil from IICTV live from Petaling Jaya, and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.